It's a gentle journey, worthy of the wait, like a wild goose flying
Series
with its only mate.
How are you?
I'm very well. Not too bad. Sorry about the frequency of the episodes, chaps and chapesses. It's just a matter of when we can squeeze them in on a whatever day. So here we are. All good.
It's fair to say for especially whiskey ambassadors, this is what sometimes is called the silly season we're about to enter into, and it's just everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah, it's getting a bit busier at the moment, and yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, certainly, second half of September through till pretty much the end of November is pretty busy. I'm off this weekend to London at the Whisky Show in London. So if anybody's going to the Whisky Show in London, I will be there for 3 days. So pouring some drams. So come
lovely.
And see us.
And at the same time, there's one in Ghent as well, which is
there is one in Ghent that I think some people are going to. Yes, absolutely. And there's a whole range of other stuff going on at the moment. So there's lots going on.
There is.
What have you been up to?
Well, later on in the podcast, we will be going to the capital of the Hanseatic region of Germany, going to Bremen. I was there. Now, it's almost 2 weeks ago. So I do apologise because I've said to people I interviewed there, it'll be on soon. But it's just the nature of the beast, Gordon. So we've got some great interviews from a show in the Werder Bremen Stadium, which is a great.
We on the pitch. Did they think it's all over?
It was then, and it is still now. So we've got some great interviews from Christoph Kirsch, Paul Dempsey, Gabriella from Duncan Taylor, Kevin Madden from West Cork, and Anna Catherine Buchholz from Hercynian Distilling, and Dave King, our friend from...
Was Dave King there?
Well, I was going to bring this up after the interview, but I was not expecting to see the head of sales, the mighty head of sales for Gordon and MacPhail pouring drams at a whiskey festival.
There you go, Mr. King. He's an interesting chap, Mr. King.
Oh, we've got a great interview with Dave coming up later.
He's fabulous, David King. So that's great. Excellent. Good.
And just to tease that interview, he did actually say in the mid-90s, I think it was the Daily Record, had him as one of Scotland's eligible bachelors, along with Dave Coulthard and others. You know. But Gordon, was that ever something that you were?
I was no. I remember meeting the person who put it together for the Scotsman or something. And I was like, how was I not in it? And he's like, oh, yeah, I can't believe I forgot about you. He was joking, obviously.
Yeah, but in my previous life as a comedian, Gordon, I think the esteemed publication called the Glasgow Herald referred to my double act partner as a pudding-faced giant, and I was a googly-eyed midget. So that's really not quite bachelor material.
What's your best joke as a comedian?
There wasn't one.
That's why you're doing whiskey.
That's why whiskey found me. So, no, listen, we've got great interviews coming up from Bremen, but we are recording now. What's this? Coming up to the end of September, beginning of October 2023. You've already apologised for lack of frequency in episodes, but whiskey news. Before we go into all the releases and go into talk about collections and collecting whiskey, anything's caught your eye?
Yeah, there has. I mean, I think the one thing that's really caught my eye, and everybody should have a look at this, is the Distillers One of One auction, which this is the second One of One auction. The first one was in 2021. And there was 40 lots, which achieved over £2.4 million donated to the Distillers Charity, which is the Youth Action Fund. They're doing it again, and there's about a similar amount of lots, I think, at this time. And we have some really quite special whiskies in here. Genuinely one of ones. So there's casks from Arran, and there's a beautiful Brora, which has an estimate of it's 1.5 litres of Brora, beautifully displayed on a beautiful plinth, and I mean beautifully done. It's got an estimate of 200 to 400,000 pounds. I think the other one that stands out, there's a few, but one of the other one that stands out is a Bowmore One of One. It's an aged Bowmore in a unique bottle. Again, 1.5 litres or certainly bigger than a normal Bowmore, and a real genuinely something you cannot buy again. Again, an estimate in a similar level of 200 to 300,000 pounds. Fabulous that the brands have gone to this sort of level for this. It really is a statement.
Just what's great to see, Gordon, how nice it is for the industry to get right behind this great cause and really sort of go to that really extra length to produce unique offerings.
Yeah. And if you have a look through all the lots, I mean, there's casks which are obviously unique. There's Rosebanks in there. We released 2 Rosebanks about 3 or 4 years ago. You can get the bottle one of each of those 2 releases on a beautifully displayed plinth. That's doing pretty well as well from a price perspective currently, and it's all going to come to a head on October the 5th, I think. So that's really something. If you've not had a look, have a look on the Sotheby's website, Distiller 1 of 1.
Oh, that's fantastic. Other news, Gordon, would be the Scottish Whisky Association releasing figures just in the last couple of hours since we're recording about the pre-pandemic levels of tourism back to Scottish distilleries. Over 2 million people visited Scottish distilleries. And to put that into perspective, how many people live here in Scotland? About 5.5.
Yeah.
So having 2 million people coming through, Germans, Americans, French, Italians, amazing figures there. And I think everybody's delighted with that.
Yeah, look, I don't think we're back to where we were, but I think we're on the road, which is good. We've seen it at Glengoyne. I think at Glengoyne we've had a busy summer, despite replacing the roof in the mid for the whole of July. But I think we would all agree we're not quite back to where we were. And obviously with what's happening with Rosebank next year, we're excited to see this trend continue. So yeah, we're that's really good news. One of the other things that's news-wise that struck me, which I have just had it came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, is it's really interesting to see, we've got a very famous lady called Maureen Robinson, who's a very famous blender and has been blending some of the finest scotches for many, many years. She has just taken up a role as being a blender for a Kentucky Owl, which is obviously a bourbon based, obviously in Kentucky, but they have basically recruited one of Scotland's most revered master blenders, which shows you that, if you understand whiskey, whether it's American or Scotch, you can blend. And she's former Diageo master blender.
Wow.
And she retired after 45 years with Diageo, but she's clearly still, wanting to get involved in whiskey. What's really interesting from our perspective as well at Rosebank is she was the woman to thank for the Flora and Fauna bottlings, which would include that Rosebank 12 that we know about.
Yeah.
So, really, really interesting sort of cross the pond activity from a very, very famous Scottish blender.
That's
very interesting. The other thing that's quite interesting this week is the launch of the new Isle of Harris distillery, Hirach.
Yes.
Which I have a bottle sitting in a newsagent round the corner that was attempted to be delivered yesterday and didn't. But I'm really excited to try that. Obviously, a new release. I think there's 8 batches, though. I think it's a little confusing about the batches and the difference between them. But 8 batches, and I've got one coming, and it looks a really nice release. So I don't know if there's any left, but if you want to try and get a release of the new Isle of Harris, obviously famous for the gin initially,
yes,
and now the whiskey has arrived.
Most distilleries will be putting out a seasonal release, the build up to Christmas. So
generally you tend to see whiskies released in March to May and September to November. Generally, that's when you generally seem to see whiskies released. We tend to release most of ours in September. So from our perspective, we've just released the new cigar malt. That first fill unique style of whiskey for Tamdhu. Very, very sought after, very limited. And, I had a question about the price of whiskies recently, and this is a prime example. People go, oh, it's quite expensive for a non-age statement whiskey. But when you explain that these are first fill casks you're taking out from a very small selection, and every first fill cask you take out of our overall stock profile, you you have to ensure you're not affecting how that affects the core of the 12, the 15, the 18 in times to come. So, that's why a whiskey such as a cigar malt is a little higher priced because of the type of casks. It's not about the age, it's about the type of cask.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll get into that later on. Gordon, we've got some great interviews from Germany. I'm dying to get to Bremen, and I'm going to sit and enjoy the next part of the podcast with a dram. I have got here an 18-year-old Douglas Lane Timorous Beasty blended malt whiskey.
So Timorous Beasty being a blended malt. Now, from what I can remember with Douglas Lane, I think they have 5 or 6 blended malts from 5 or 6 of the regions. So I think they have Big Pete, they have Rock Oyster, which I think is an island one. I don't know which one Timorous Beasties is. Is it the lowland one? Is it the highland one? I'm not sure. We should ask Joanne.
Have done a Speyside with great company, and that's a lovely dram. An 18-year-old, that's sumptuous.
Enjoy.
I'll enjoy. God, you were going to be drinking the Hirach, but
I will find something to drink. Come back to me.
As about Hirach, and now you've got nothing. So,
I've got nothing because I'm looking nothing. I will have something.
You can tell us what it is after this. I want to pick up a couple of points from this fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
From the Kirsch Whisky Fair in Bremen. Here we go. Take it away.
My name is Christoph Kirsch from Kirsch Import, and we are hosting our second annual house fair here, where we invite our good partners from all over the world to meet our customers in Germany.
It's been wonderful. You said we are here. Where is here?
We are in the football stadium Weserstadion in the beautiful city of Bremen in the north of Germany.
Well, I like football, but why did you pick this place?
Well, I grew up here, so a lot of our employees are big, long-time fans of the club, so it's kind of bringing together...
And that's Werder Bremen.
It's Werder Bremen, the football club, so we bring together both of our passions, one being spirits and the other football, so it's a good venue, we feel like.
That's a fantastic idea. And just take you back, Kirsch Imports, how long have they been going?
My dad founded the company in 1976, so I'm second generation now, took over about 10 years ago. And we try to bring good spirits to people all over Germany.
All right, and was that a decision, a hard decision, an easy decision to take over?
Well, funnily enough, it wasn't always clear, but when I took half a year off university to kind of put my foot in the water, I instantly fell in love with the industry and the business and never looked back.
Right, this podcast is called Whisky Unscripted. There's lots of lovely rums here and some gins here, but how do you go about deciding what whiskies to bring into Germany? What do you like? Is it a personal preference, or is it sheer business? And how? Don't need to tell me the inner workings, but how do you go about it?
So I don't think there's too much of a personal preference in terms of flavor. There's so many flavors that I think you need to have something for everyone. And then we are a family-owned independent business, so we like to look for the same in the Scottish companies all over the world. So family-owned, independent, ideally. And then just good liquid, rather smaller producers, and ultimately, as long as the liquid is good and it works for the consumer, it usually works for us as well.
And you do imports all over Germany, or is it all local areas?
We are acting nationwide all over Germany. Also, just started in Austria, and hopefully.
And more. Yes. Now, okay, you put together a fair. So how do you lay it out? Try and paint a picture of how you've designed the fair and how does it flow?
It's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't think we've given it too much thought. It's like
yes, you get some Scotch whisky behind me. New World over there.
Yeah, exactly. So you just kind of put it together by category, and then it's the one Scotch over there, and then some in the middle, and then over there's world whiskey, and then rum, and kind of put it by category in a way.
Yes.
I'm not too sure whether that's the best way. Like, we are actually debating maybe we split it a little bit more, so we get a little bit more interaction between the things.
Right. That's interesting.
But so far so good, and it seems to work.
We've talked to a few people here already, but could you just name check some of the whiskies that our listeners might have heard that you're bringing in that are here today?
Well, I think we have a big selection. We have a few independent bottlers such as Signature Vintage, Gordon and MacPhail, Duncan Taylor, Mary McDavid, a couple of distilleries, older ones like Edward Dower. We do have Glen Alecky here. plenty of other brands. I'm sure I'm forgetting now.
No, I don't know. I think that's pretty good.
Obviously, we have the Six Isles blended malt and the Isle of Skye blended Scotch, which are fantastic as well.
Brilliant. Fronted by a very handsome young man, I believe.
Exactly,
I don't know who he is,
exactly.
but
I met him and he's great.
So how's it been? You know, this is not a public event, isn't it? So it's a business event. Could you explain why you did that?
Yeah, so for us it's important, you know, it's very important as well for each whiskey brand to talk to consumers. But ultimately for us as an importer, you know, our customers are the businesses who then themselves are actually speaking to the consumers. So we wanted to make sure that we have a venue where we can meet our customers, which are the shops, which then go on and actually speak to the consumers and try to educate them about whiskey and all the other spirits that we do.
Because you've got people that have what we would call off licenses, and you have, is it restaurants as well and bars, people from all sorts of businesses? We
have people from all sorts of businesses. Probably the majority is from off license premises, but also some restaurants, some bars.
Now, just a quick word about the categories in Germany. Whiskey's been very strong, but is it safe? Is it being pursued by rum and tequilas and gin? Or what roughly in Germany, and unscientifically, where do you think whiskey sits as a spirit?
I think it's pretty much number one. I mean, you always have local spirits, from imported spirits. Whiskey is by far and above the number one. I think the main challenge for Scotch could be the pricing going forward. You know, on some, especially some older liquids, you know, basically the normal consumer is a little bit priced out of the market. But there we also have alternatives now going into blended malt, blended Scotch, where you have very good liquid for the price you pay. So it's just finding the right product for the individual.
And how's the market at the moment going forward? You're working, I'm sure, months ahead. Is it looking healthy, the spirits market?
It's looking healthy, but less dynamic than a couple of years ago. You see some challenges, but coming from very strong last couple of years. And you just do the work and hope that it's really sunny and hot right now in Bremen. So you hope for some more colder weather, so people actually look forward to being at home and enjoying a drum in front of their...
Of course, or this is lovely cold gin weather as well, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing. Listen, Christoph, thank you very much for your time.
And
good luck with the fair. It's been great so far. I'm sure we're going to have a great afternoon here.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Take care. And now for more of the interviews in action. Well, here we are, day 2 of the Whisky Hush Fair. I didn't quite make day 1, but there's a story behind that. And I'm at the stall of the Brave New Spirits and Paul Dempsey. Paul, tell us about the dangers of photography.
Oh, don't.
Go ahead.
We're in a very photogenic football stadium. Lots of places to balance bottles to take scenic photographs. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong point to balance, and somebody at the next football game is going to have a lovely whiskey-smelling seat. So
the bottle smashed. These are the things that... Paul, give us a quick update. Brave New Spirits, what is it? Who are you? What's the story?
Brave New Spirits are an independent bottler based in Glasgow. We have a few different small batch single cask brands. We are also the people behind the new Gordon Distillery in Campbelltown, which got its planning permission last week.
I saw it in the papers.
We've been working in Japan. Been working in Germany for about 2 years now with Kirsch. And they have the bottles that you see here. So,
give us a quick run through the bottles.
We have a range called Whisky of Voodoo, which is small batches, usually exotic kind of wine cask finishes. We have a single cask range called Cask Noir, including a German exclusive single cask Jura. Now those are again just really high quality single cask, mainly classic distilleries. A lot of French wine casks used for maturation. And then we have the Yellow Edition, which is the more traditional bourbon and sherry cask style single casks.
Right. What's going well? What went well yesterday? Now this is all trade, isn't it? This is not public.
Yeah, the thing is, everybody that's coming in the door here has got a store or a bar. So Voodoo seems to be popular with the bars. The single cask ones are for the shops, I think.
Okay.
And Germany loves rare small batch whiskey anyway, so that's why we've got an exclusive that's only on sale in Germany. So.
And just on the word of travelling, how's it been this year, doing the rounds?
It was easier than yours.
Yeah, it's a
My flight got here.
it's a bit of a nightmare.
My flight.
We do travel tips in the show, and I suppose one of the tips I mentioned, I thought of yesterday, is just don't panic.
Yeah.
Honestly, when something hits the fan, just do not
carry a spare set of pants and socks in your hand luggage, because if you do lose your suitcase, at least you can turn up the next day for your flight with some clean grundies on. So.
That's great. That's a very important. And it's the first time I've had the word grundy on the show, so it's always good.
We're trying to figure out what to say. So.
Right, well, Paul, good luck with this.
Cheers, Gordon.
Thanks for popping up in the Whisky Unscripted.
Have fun. Cheers.
Oh, thank you. So, we're just going round the stall just now. What's your name?
Gabriella.
Gabriella.
Oh, now. I thought you meant in the future.
No. Just now.
Okay.
Gabriella, you're with Duncan Taylor, and we're talking about blended whiskies.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm a big fan. We've got Isle of Skye here. What have you got?
So at Duncan Taylor we have our Black Bull brand from 1864. So it's actually quite an old brand, and we're sticking to the original recipes. We use high malt content in the whiskies, so 50% malt, 50% grain, and then also 50% ABV. Which does something. And blended whiskey, I think it's just an undiscovered area. Because
that's the whole discussion.
Exactly.
Do you get sometimes what we get? People think it's a blend, let's move on.
Yeah, exactly, and that's just wrong. I think it's the same with grain whiskey, because you can find excellent grain whiskies, but it's just because there's this misconception that people think that it's inferior, which is not right. If you make the recipe right, then the whiskey is good. It's actually probably more difficult to create a good blend than a single malt. Yes, it requires for you to try and taste and keep trying.
And my chat today was sometimes whiskies go to you. They're very powerful. They're very strong. Mm-hmm. I'm sure yours is the same. This blend, you can really go to it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to burn. It's nice and smooth. I'm sure yours is the same. And you really work it and get all those lovely flavours out. And if you do, you get a lovely experience with a blended whiskey.
Exactly, yeah. We use both bourbon and sherry casks, and depending which Black Bull you choose, there might be a bit more sherry in one than the other. But it's really easy to drink, and we try, at the beginning of tastings, we try and do a Black Bull in all the single cask tastings. People try it, and they're very surprised that it's a blended whiskey, because it's not something they expect. Their experience is, all the lower shelf, cheaper end whiskies.
I think that's it. I think if you're listening to this, it's not say untapped, because there are very, very big selling blended whiskies out there, but it's a sector of the market, I think, there's so much more can be done with it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we're entering a new era for blended whiskies. They were popular back in 1900s, but now I think it's resurfacing again, because people are discovering, and there's more companies and more distilleries that are putting good blended whiskies out in the market. I think it's good also because many companies are being more transparent in what they're using, that they're using good ingredients, high malt content, which helps.
And age.
Exactly.
You guys aging as well.
Yeah.
What's the ages?
So we have the 2 Kylos, which are without age statements, but then we have a 12-year-old Black Bull, 18-year-old, 30-year-old, 50-year-old, and then 55-year-old. Wow. Which some of the single malts you might not even find at that age.
You need a rather large checkbook for that single malt of a 50, 55 year. That's amazing. We've got a 30 year, but it cannot be age, Gabriella. And that's why you went to bed last night much later than I did, and looking much fresher than I am. Are you enjoying the fair?
Yes, it's really good. Lots of people here, they do appreciate good whiskies, and they like hearing about them. And it's also because it's B2B, so you get to talk more in person about the things. And I think here people, they need to know what they need to tell their consumers, so that's why they come here.
They want that bite size and sort of little crib sheet of how to approach the whiskies to sell to their customers. I know it's been great. Listen, and what about the venue?
It's good. I've never really been in an arena like this, so I was just taking pictures of the Black Bull outside.
Same here.
It's beautiful. Did you hear Paul? He dropped the bottle.
I did. Yes, I had to interview him as well. He dropped his bottle. Number 1, don't drop the bottle. And Gabriella, thank you so much for joining us in Whisky Unscripted.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So I've sailed up to this lovely gentleman, some lovely whiskey here. What's your name and what's the whiskey?
My name's Kevin Madden, and I'm from West Cork Distillery. So we're in 100% Irish owned independent distillery based in Skibbereen in West Cork in Ireland.
So how long has it been going?
The company itself has gone 20 years, and I suppose it's a great story that it started from a shed in a small fishing village in Union Hall. 3 friends started about creating spirit from that part of Ireland. And as I said, they've bought a second-hand schnapps still from Switzerland.
Is that right?
Yeah, and started, I suppose, experimenting on how they create different spirits like vodka and gin, and then later on, move forward maybe 10 years, whiskey production began.
Wow, 10 years. What style of whiskey is it? How is it made? What kind of stills have you? What's it? West Cork Whiskey 101.
Well, I suppose we try to do everything. So I suppose what we've got our blends. So we've got our signature core blend is our West Cork bourbon cask. We've got a nice black cask which is probably has a bit more malt in it, and we finish it in a heavily charred cask. We've got some beer finishes. So we've got a stout, an IPA finish, and those, interesting enough, we use a process called reverse osmosis. So we take some of the water content out of those beers and stouts, and it's left more of a kind of a syrup liquid. So that sits into the cask, is then removed, and then you can get more of the stout and IPA character come through on the final products. We've our own, last December released a pot still, so we've our own 5-year-old pot still, 5 years aged, 5 years in bourbon casks. Nice. And then we've got a 7-year-old single malt that we released at the same time. So the single malt.
You don't often see 7s. I like that in a bottle. That's great, because it used to be in the Scotch whiskies, 8s was quite a popular number. You don't see them as much, but a 7s, I love that.
Yeah, so, and I suppose we try to have different unique selling points. So uniquely with the single malt, we've aged in sherry first. So it's in 4 years in sherry cask, and then for 3 years in bourbon. And I suppose one of our popular latest releases is our maritime release. So go back to the 3 founders. 2 of the founders were fishermen, and it's true of making a living 20 years ago fishing in Ireland was quite difficult, and I suppose that's how the distillery was kind of born out of that necessity to create a living for themselves and their families. So this is our maritime release. So it comes in that kind of unique bottle. I know you can't see it, but if you kind of maybe Google West Cork Maritime Release, you'll see that it's in a bottle shaped as a buoy that you're seeing the sea.
Ah, yes, a ruling shape.
Yeah, so, and that's, again, our Maritime Release, and that comes in 5 finishes. So we've a port, sherry, rum, virgin oak and Calvados, and we've Calvados kept for travel retail only. So, and that's really it's a lovely link back to the heritage of the distillery.
And it's can you visit West Cork? Is it a place?
You can. No, we do visit. You can of course visit. We don't have what I call the turnstile visitor experience, but we do tours Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So if you want to look up West Cork Distillers, or we'll be more than happy to show people around.
That's brilliant. So check out the website as well. But listen, it's not a bad fare. What do you make of it?
No, it's been very good. It's I know it's only the 2nd year running. We weren't here last year, but for us, we're delighted to be here, and we're doing some nice business, and so I suppose supporting Kirsch is important because they're a great partner.
Brilliant. Well, listen, carry on.
Perfect.
Carry on. Get working. Come on. You can't swan around here do interviews all day. Outside there, and I'm just going to take a walk. We've got a lot of the Scotch whiskies in one room, New World whiskies and some rums in another room, and in between the both a stall, and I'm coming over with a lot of awards in front of me here, little pictures of awards, and I tell you what, let me describe. What's your name, and could you explain what we're all looking at?
I'm Anna from Hercynian Distilling, so from a distillery just in the heart of Germany.
Oh, so it's a German distillery. How do you pronounce it?
Hercynian Distilling.
Hercynian, right. Okay, take us through the distillery and what's on the table.
We're a quite old-fashioned distillery, so we produce single malt whiskey like in the olden days. We use wooden wash bags, we use 0.5 ton mash tun. We have just an output of about 50 to 60,000 bottles every year. We have direct wood-fired stills.
Oh, wow.
Classic dunnage warehousing.
Yes.
And we only produce single malt whiskey.
Single malt, okay. Matured
mostly in sherry casks, so we have over 60% of our warehouse capacity is just filled with first fill and refill sherry casks, but we use also port wine casks and Madeira casks, Marsala casks, and other sweet wine and wine casks.
I'm salivating just thinking of it. It just sounds wonderful. Now, I was just speaking to somebody, and I've always wondered why in the past the Germans hadn't been into whiskey production. Was it because schnapps was so popular? But now they've woken up and they're making some great whiskies. But do you think it never happened 100 years ago, 80 years ago?
It did happen.
Okay.
If we see our tradition in the Harz Mountains, distilling malted barley begins in the year 1300 by monks and novices of the nearby Imperial Abbey of Valkenried. And the monks and novices started to brew their beer. And when sometimes in summertime the beer was degenerating to a sour beer, then they distilled it. And then they gained aquavita from malted barley. So in the medieval ages, but then there came doppelkorn and schnapps, and so no one dared to mature it into cask. And this is a big difference we do nowadays.
Right, okay, so back to nowadays. What's on the table? There's lots of awards here.
Here on the table we've got some Elsburn bottlings, and my special bottling we have here is Sherry Cask Matured Distillery Edition with 5.9% ABV.
Wow.
Then we have a Willowburn Ember, which is from 50% sherry and 50% other wine casks. And our special bottling, the Hard Go, made from wood-smoked, peated and unpeated malt.
Oh, both on, and a lovely label on that as well.
It's an Art Nouveau label,
yes.
Inspired by Mucha, and we've got a first fill sherry casks with 58.5% ABV.
Yes, that sounds absolutely
So
gorgeous.
class-fitting.
So gorgeous. And what's been going well at this the fair? What's been going well?
Everything is going well, but the best sellers are the Distillery Edition from the Elsburn and the Hard Go Voluptuous.
And can you, I've mentioned this before, is there a distillery you can visit if people were on holidays, or is it a closed distillery?
You can visit us,
okay.
It's no problem. We've opened 5 days a week, and we do tours every day, so it's no problem to visit us, and we have about 20,000 visitors every year.
Oh, that's lovely. So it's a great excuse to come to Germany and enjoy
It
this
is not
weather.
only an excuse, it is a reason to visit Germany.
Oh, fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us on Whisky Unscripted.
You're welcome.
Good luck with the whiskies. I don't know, you won't need luck.
Thank you, and you've got to try.
I'm away to get a glass right now.
Great.
It's always nice when you go to these fairs to meet familiar faces, and we've got a man called Mr. Dave King of Gordon and MacPhail. How are you, Dave?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing, Gordon?
What are we going to get here?
A nice... I'll take your glass, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, we're going to take you over to the Gordon and MacPhail stand. We've got a gorgeous, delicious array of whiskies, and I'm going to pick something very special for you, which will probably involve a sherry cask and a great deal of age.
And from something, my language.
From something you may or may not have heard of. So we're going to head off to the stand here where we're baking, but never mind.
It is hot. It is hot. We have Ben across here. Say hello, Ben. Hello. Who's eating something? You had one word on another podcast before. We'll talk about that. Dave,
and we've got another Gordon as well.
Oh, yeah, only the best people at the Gordon MacPhail stand. Is this Gordon MacPhail?
Sadly not.
Dave, you were in the newspapers.
Sometimes.
Yes. It wasn't for anything untoward.
No, not this time. Although back in 1995, I was voted one of Scotland's most eligible bachelors by the Daily Record, no less. There was me, David Coulthard, Stephen Hendry. It was ridiculous. So what we're famous for now, I guess, are these wonderful rare whiskies. So this is a Glentorquers 1990, 31 years old, 58.3% from a first fill sherry cask, one of 505 bottles. So this is actually a puncheon rather than a butt. So a puncheon is just a bit like me. It's a bit shorter and fatter than a regular one.
Same here.
But I wondered if you might like to try that. Go on, give me a...
You really, the arm's twisted here, Dave. You've really twisted my arm. Let's have a taste of this. Glentorquers, take us through.
So
where is
Glentorquers is basically on the road between Bucky and Banff, more or less, is it? Keith and Bucky. So sort of Speyside, just Northeast Highland, Speyside. Speyside technically. But unusual to get 505 bottles out of a puncheon, because that's a great thing that we do. Getting extra maturation, high quality. It's fantastic, right?
It's actually fantastic.
And it's really dark coloured, really rich sherried, and there's probably some really good tasting notes on the front. So I don't know what you're getting from that, Gordon, but
my glasses are...
All right. You might be getting rich fruitcake aromas. Bit of cinnamon, dark toffee.
Beeswax. We often have a bit of beeswax.
Cracked black pepper, forest fruits, perhaps.
Well, at the back of the palate, it really is dancing.
Yeah.
At the back, which is the pepperiness there. But real classic sherry, you know.
If you like sherry, you like that.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Dave, we've talked about you quite a bit, Gordon MacPhail, the last few episodes in Whisky Unscripted, with all the goings on. Before we even talk about that, just for anybody listening that don't know Gordon and MacPhail, who are you?
So we're probably one of the preeminent independent bottlers, and have been doing it since 1895. The difference with us is we send out casks to the distilleries, so we don't work in the broking market. We fill our own casks at the distillery, then keep them for a greatly length of time, up to 80 years old. But we do have things that are a bit younger. So we have the Discovery range, comes in at about £50, and Generations might be £80,000. So if whatever your pocket, we've got something for you.
And it must be a cornucopia, your warehousing.
Yes,
where's the main one?
Well, the main one's in Elgin at our factory, but we also store at Benromic, and we do, because of the value of the casks, spread them around various properties. Yeah.
Wow. Now, you mentioned Benromic, that's what you were in the newspapers for, because independent bottlers, there's a new, just what Ian MacLeod have done.
Yep,
you know, there's a new evolution going on at Gordon MacPhail. Could you explain?
Yeah, definitely. We're in the business of working from being just an independent bottler to being an independent bottler and distiller. We've got the Benromic Distillery, we've also got the Cairn Distillery, and so, you know, if you move the clock forward 35 years, 50 years, we'll probably mainly be a distiller, but we'll still have independent bottling. So we're stopping filling. We've got enough stock to last probably another 2 or 3 generations.
I would like to ask, is there a ballpark how many casks you've got? Well, is that
tens of thousands?
Extraordinary.
No,
and it's been going since what,
1895, yeah, 1895. And because we're based in Elgin, right in the heart of Speyside, we've always had historical links with the distillers. And so typically, you know, we'll have Tamdhu, for example. We've got Glenrothes. We've got 97 distilleries basically that we have in the warehouse. Some of which are closed. You know, it is, as you say, a cornucopia, but I wouldn't like to spell it.
No, don't spell it. And I do the history of whiskey, and one of the dates, because it's quite important to me, 1968.
Yep.
Somebody came into the world, and Mr. George Urquhart releases the Connoisseur's Choice, which I know a lot of people said that almost could be called the grandfather of single malt whiskey.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was the only person that was really looking at single malts when the world was dominated by blends. You know, Johnny Walker, Dewars, Cuddy Sark, you know, all of these people, J&B, were out there and using all the malt whiskies into blends. But he said, well, you know, I want to keep this thing separately, and so we were licensed bottlers. So you'll see bottles of Macallan bottled by Gordon and MacPhail. You'll see even today we do Mortlach, we do Linkwood, we do a number of blend. You know, distillers saying to us, use our label on your bottlings as a licensed bottler, and that gave us a very special position, but also meant that quality was really important because we were being trusted with somebody else's label. These days that's less of a thing, although we still have 5 or 6 that we do, but mainly Connoisseur's Choices, pretty much all single cask, all cask strength, all unique. We try and do it, you know, and it's what whiskey people want.
It's a great story. I've learned so much. You've been an eligible bachelor, but your career's interesting as well because you have connections to Glengoyne.
I do. I was married in the still room in Glengoyne.
Can we just stop that? You were actually married in the still room?
Yeah, I was married in the still room at Glengoyne by the Reverend Ron. I can't remember his surname now, but I remember his wife had a few drinks. She enjoyed a Glengoyne or two, that was for sure, that day. We had the reception, the initial reception in the visitor centre overlooking the water reservoir there. And then about a year and a half later, my eldest son Jamie, we had him christened up at the distillery as well. And I've got a great picture of a 1-year-old with a bottle of Glengoyne 17, by the way, an excellent tipple. We sadly don't have any Glengoyne stocks at Gordon MacPhail, but it doesn't stop me drinking it. So I've got a lot of connections with Glengoyne.
And you were there because you were working for Edrington at the time, who owned it, and you were in charge of the...
Yeah, I was managing director of Lang Brothers, which had Glengoyne. And I also saw your Lang's Banana Rum.
Yes, and, you had that, you were saying,
we had
on
that
your desk.
On my desk way back in the 90s.
Right.
So, yeah, lots of links with Glengoyne and Ian MacLeod Distillers.
And then you moved from Edrington, you moved
down to Berry Brothers and Rudd. Edrington did a joint venture with Berry Brothers on Cuddy Sark, and I went down there to be the marketing director. And then from then I went out to the States to run a distillery and brewery and an import company, And yeah, so I've been around, and then when I came back from the States in 2016, I joined Gordon and MacPhail as sales director, and here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. With the two distilleries now and some just amazing whiskies that we're drinking right now.
Absolutely, and delighted to be part of it, and working with the Urquhart family, who are proud custodians. It's the 4th generation now, and they're looking forward to many more generations of family in the business. So.
Yeah, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Pleasure, always.
I've actually managed to ask not bad questions.
Yeah, you've done a great job.
Back to the whiskey.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.
Oh, there we have, Gordon. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was...
Yeah, and good to hear from Dave King and Paul Dempsey as well. He's got some interesting news coming.
Well,
of course, with his new distillery. Brilliant.
That was it. What we've got now down there, we've got the Rassie, the R&B Mitchell starting up in Macrahanish. You've got Springbank, Glen Scotia, and now, as Paul said, Witchburn.
I know, it's amazing. Really, really good to hear, and good to hear. And obviously, with probably with what's happened at Springburn recently with Headley, it's really interesting to see that commitment to Campbelltown. He would be really happy with all of this, I think. So that's great.
Oh, it's great. And we'll maybe do a year that changed whiskey in the next episode, because it's such a big subject. You're now looking back 100 years, and really the year that done it for, well, there's a few years that done it for Campbelltown was the 1920s, 20 odd, maybe 28, get into the 1920s. By the end of the 1920s, there was 2 left. So really, 100 years ago, between 1924, 25, 26, just almost a mass extinction. So it's taken almost 100 years. In fact, you could say more for this to happen.
No, it's unbelievable. Yeah, no, unbelievable. And I'm glad, very glad.
Yeah.
Which is fabulous.
Another, I would like to doff my cap to Anna there from the Hercynian Distilling in Germany. What an interesting single malt, Gordon. They were direct firing their stills, single malt, wooden washbacks, real traditional way of doing things.
Yeah. Did you try it?
Yeah, I did try it. Yes. So absolutely delicious. It really is lovely. Yeah, if you do it well, it doesn't matter what age it is, it was delicious. So that was Paul, as you heard, taking a photograph and dropped his bottle. This is the pitfalls of being an ambassador out there. You've got to do the social media. So you had the bottle balanced in the Werder Bremen stadium with the football pitch behind the bottle, just about to hit the button, and the bottle falls smashed.
Oh, no.
We've done travel tips before, Gordon, but some of these ambassadorial tips,
we have done travel tips, and here's another one. Take some blue tack if you want to take a photo of a picture of a bottle on a ledge.
That's exactly it.
And so what makes that a little bit different? That was a trade show, wasn't it?
Yes.
So that's a show not for consumers. So it's for selling your wares to shops and that type of thing, isn't it? On behalf. So you were there talking up our brands on behalf of our distributor.
Yes.
Is that not right?
That's correct. So I think the difference being they were looking how to apply your products in the establishment. Interesting. Young clientele in the second days, a lot of cocktail, a lot of people having cocktail bars. Can these flavors work? And they're having a taste of them, and we got a really good.
Good. And it was obviously the other thing, of course, is just to give people a bit. We have a few distributors who work for us in Germany, and so Kirsch obviously do Edinburgh Gin and some of our whiskies. We have Glengoyne, Tamdhu, and Rosebank with another distributor, Borco, and we have Smokehead with a third distributor. Is that not right?
Is that unusual in the industry? Or is that just par for the course?
A lot of it can be legacy. A lot of it can be a whole range of reasons. But so you would have been there, obviously, talking about Isle of Skye, I would imagine.
That's right. Isle of
and
Skye.
Maybe a bit of Edinburgh Gin. Were you talking a bit about gin?
I was talking about Edinburgh Gin, and one of our favourites in the show, the Six Isles.
The Six Isles, blended malt. Can I just say to anybody out there, if you want to drink great whiskey, there's so many, of course, but blended malt, don't discount blended malt because it has the word blended in it. And if you like a smoky whiskey with bags of flavour, go for the Six Isles.
And
beautiful.
And that's exactly this Timorous Beasty blended malt. as you say, it's a wonderful
From the Highland region, I found out for you.
the Highland region. That's right. It's about the 6 hours up and down a treat as well, Gordon. So
Good.
that was great. Now, I am heading out tonight, and the podcast will probably come out after this. I'm heading out to do a tasting.
Oh, you're going to Edinburgh tonight, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. And to do a little bit of the Glengoyne storytelling.
Oh, yes.
This is leading somewhere. This is
Mhm.
leading to a challenge.
Oh, God, right.
And I'm going to be doing a little 5 sections on the story of Glengoyne. And at the end of each section, I'm holding up to the camera. I've got little yes or no cards just to give people a bit of interactivity and some questions based on those sections I've talked about.
Right.
So yeah, the first section involves obviously I'm not going to that one with you, Gordon, the creation of distilleries. We're 1833, and then I've got a whole section, are we older than Glenmorangie, for example?
Okay.
So I'm going to park that aside. But number 2 section is about the transition in the 1850s. A chap takes over Glengoyne. It's called Burnfoot Lodge, Burnfoot Farm in those days. He's from a distillery in Bathgate. Now, using my trusty Alfred Bernard's Distilleries of the United Kingdom, published 1888, I found out that the only distillery in Bathgate was Glen Mavis. That's a strange name for Mavis. In this country, you associate with your auntie, or the lady
Coronation Street.
Or Coronation Street. Mavis. It's a strange name for a distillery, really. Yes, there was a distillery called Glen Mavis, which got me thinking, real or fake? Could you spot these distilleries either real or I've made them up? And this will be a world premiere tonight, Rose Street at the Old 100 in Edinburgh. There is no... So, real or fake? Gordon Dundas. Was there ever a distillery? And this is out of the Whisky Distilleries of the United Kingdom. This is Alfred Bernard's book.
Or not.
Yes or no? Glen Nevis.
So Glen means valley.
Yep.
Ben Nevis is a hill.
That's right.
Which is the opposite of a valley. So I'm suggesting no.
It was a distillery. Glen Nevis was in Campbelltown.
Really?
Yes.
So it's not even up near Ben Nevis.
Yeah, I think it was. No, Campbelltown. Nowhere near Ben Nevis. That's right. Tannoch Bray Distillery. Was that ever a distillery?
I mean, this is complete shot. Yes, I think it probably was.
It wasn't a distillery. Gordon, 0 out of 2. Tannoch Bray
was completely made up.
Yes, it was completely made up. It was Dr. Finlay's casebook. It was a program from the 1960s, and it was set at Glengoyne, and they took it over and called it Tannoch Bray Distillery. So never was a distillery, but it was a fictional one in a television show.
Okay, right, good.
You've heard of Macallan. Is there ever been a distillery called Port Allen?
Port Allen. No.
You're correct. The first one, Gordon. Gordon, we've got Springbank. Was there ever a distillery called Springside? Real?
Yes, I think there was, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. Another Campbelltown one.
Yes, I think there was. I remember hearing about this. Yes, I have heard that.
You're now getting your legs. You're now getting your
yeah.
sea legs here. Glenfoyle. Yes or no? Glenfoyle. There was a television program called Foyle's War in the UK, but was there a Glen?
No, there wasn't. No.
Yes, there was. It was in Stirling.
Right, so we've got 2 out of 5.
Correct. Royal Scotia.
So we've got Royal Lochnagar, Royal Brackla. There's not a Royal Scotia.
You're absolutely correct. That's my trick question. There is a Scotia. There was a Scotia, but not Royal Scotia.
No.
Glencadam.
There is a distillery called Glencadam.
You're absolutely right in Brecon. Gordon, last 3, there's a lovely village in Scotland, not far from Edinburgh, heading up to Perthshire, Auchtermuchty. Was there ever a distillery called Auchtermuchty Distillery?
That's Fife, so it would be Lowlands. There were lots of distilleries in the Lowlands, but I've never heard of Auchtermuchty Distillery. So I've got no idea. Yes,
you are right. Auchtermuchty, there was a distillery. Alfred Bernard visited it 1885, 1886. As you see, a plethora of distilleries in those days. And last couple, Glengyle.
Yes.
Correct. And finally...
Glengyle's in Campbelltown.
Campbelltown. Finally, Lochendal. Lochendal. You've mentioned Bowmore already today on the podcast, but was there a distillery called Lochendal?
I think there was.
You are correct, Gordon. Yes, you are. There was. So obviously it fell by the wayside.
Yeah, I don't know where it was, but I remember hearing about Lochendal Distillery. So yeah.
So and I have to say on that point, how beautiful is the Bowmore tasting room?
Absolutely one of those places in the world of whiskey. Top 10 whiskey locations to drink whiskey, I would suspect.
Wow. That's a good subject.
All good.
Of a
podcast,
it is.
It's a very good subject for a podcast.
We're going to follow that one up. So there we go, Gordon. That's a literal premiere of the quiz part.
Fantastic.
Just in the fact that Glen Mavis, a chap, came from there to oversee and take on what would be Glengoyne. Just an odd sounding name for a distillery. So there we go.
It is a bit of a weird name, isn't it?
And I just on the research, in the 1820s, although some of these were a wee bit further up, but all those Campbelltown ones, over 100. It was like a gold rush in Scotland in the 1820s. After the Excise Act of 1823, anyone that could get the money together could open up the distillery now legally. And it was like a floodgate opening up. And yeah, well over 100 distilleries, well over 100. I don't know if it's 200, but well over 100 opened up in the 1820s. And of course, many, many, many did not see the light of day.
Absolutely.
We did a wee bit of a summer book club, and we'll have got an author coming on in the next episodes. All will be revealed. I've been in touch with the agent, so that's what we're.
Oh, I see.
An agent.
Oh, I see.
And but for that history of those closed distilleries, not only was Alfred Bernard, but a good book, Gordon, Brian Townsend, Scotch Mist.
Was that not the guy who wrote Adrian Mole? That was Sue Townsend, wasn't it?
Well,
and that is Brian. So was Sue Townsend, who wrote Adrian Mole, is that Brian's sister?
I had never thought.
And is Pete Townsend also involved?
And now you've taken it too far, because you almost had me. You almost had me. Scotch Mist is about all the closed distilleries. I've just finished reading it, and yeah, I think he refers to it as a gold rush in the 1820s. Amazing. Some of them just never, and only the cream rose to the top. The one that's still with us today. So it's amazing, and that sort of takes a full circle to our Campbelltown chat. And
yeah, of course.
What would you say the renaissance of Campbelltown takes 100 years to get back on their feet, but my goodness, they are. So
yeah, it's good to hear. Absolutely good to hear. And you just with the release of the Isla Harris, and we've got a whole the whiskey environment is looking pretty positive. But I think the other thing to just say is that with all these new releases and all these new distilleries, it's a really positive outlook. Certainly in the shorter term, and certainly in the last week, we have noticed I think the market's a little tougher at the moment, actually, and that's just down to, I think what's going on in the world, which the uncertainty in Europe and a bit in the UK and America is probably less that way. But obviously, just generally at the moment, the world is a little, I don't know. And we just see it in whiskey. Whiskey, it's always a long-term banker, but I think at the moment it's just a little bit more tougher, which is, from our perspective, we don't have loads of whiskey. We pretty much sell what we have, and we have more demand than we have supply, which is it's a relatively good position to be in. You'd love to have more supply to but that's sort of where we're at. And I just noticed that, having spoken to a few people around the industry.
Yes, is that across the industry?
That's across the industry. I think you look at your own behavior. You go out less. I'm going out less. I'm doing a few less things and things like that, just because I'm, we're all doing the same thing, and that covers you in whiskey as well. I
think it was Forbes magazine who said that at the moment, I think the worldwide value for whiskey is about 60 billion. In Scotland, our exports about 6 billion, and they're expecting growth towards the end of the decade, heading up to over 108 billion pounds.
Yeah, look, I mean, you'll always have times when we've seen big rises and falls in Scotch whiskey in the past. This is not a big fall; it's just a simple, a little bit of a compression on demand. But I think we'll see that will come back, and I think in the longer term, the need for really good whiskey and the need and the diversity in the markets that we have, will help Scotch in the long term. So it's just a little bit of dampening of demand in certain areas, I think, and we're seeing it across the industry.
Right. Okay. Before we head off, I just want to you teed it up. You're heading down to London. I think that's the Whisky Live. That's Sukinder's show. Is that right?
Yes, it's Sukinder. It's the Whisky Exchange Whisky Show in Old Billingsgate. I think it's completely sold out. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be there with all the Ian MacLeod wares from Glengoyne and Tamdhu, and maybe even a Rosebank for people to try as their sort of dream dram.
And who you be looking at for? Who you expect to see down there? Some fellow producers, and maybe Sukinder about Tormore.
Yes, Tormore and Head Distillery is getting on Islay. Looking forward to it because I haven't been for a couple of years. I went 2 years ago, and it was still life was still a bit COVID-y back then. It's a great show. It's a great show from a meeting everybody perspective. It's not a UK, it's an international show, and you really have. I think some of the best shows are probably that. I think it's the best show in the UK because it's very international. I think you've got Whisky Live in Paris, which is a really big, trade and consumer show, but probably trade is more important aspect of it. And it's a big show run by La Maison du Whisky. They're probably two of the standout shows, having obviously been at the Whisky L in Seoul. Ooh. I think that's one of the biggest whiskey shows in the world. Is not in Seoul, sorry, in Shanghai. Know your country, Gordon. Know your country, Shanghai. That's an amazing whiskey show. With the show at the weekend will be great. So everybody pop along to the Ian MacLeod stand.
That will be good fun. Great, Gordon. Well, listen, that has got to the end of an episode. Thank you to all our contributors from Bremen. That was great, and
well done on that. And I'll get some interviews this weekend.
Oh, that'd be great. And I'm off to Viva. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
Oh, yes. So just to tell everybody, just to give you a little bit of context, Gordon went to Dallas. So Gordon Dallas went to Dallas. There's a famous film that I'm going to quote, but I'm not actually going to quote it. I didn't realize when you came back and just sort of dropped into the conversation it was your first time ever in the USA.
Yeah. All over Europe, but never across the pond.
And you're going back.
Can't get enough of it. That's right.
And you're not just you're going to Vegas.
Yeah. Right into the heart of the action. So yeah, it's the same people that distribute and buy our whiskey in Total Wines. These liquor stores, absolutely amazing. They're having a wonderful festival, a big night in Vegas, and certain producers are being invited to go across and pour for some of their exclusive customers.
And anybody out there should be following Isle of Skye on Instagram, etc., because Gordon will show you the work he's been doing on it. It's what I love about Isle of Skye, again, what we said about the word blended, it's a blended whiskey, but the depth of the range is something to behold, isn't it? From an 8-year-old up to a 30-year-old with about 7 expressions in between.
Oh, that's right. Just exactly what we're talking about with Gabriella there from Duncan Taylor. Big blends can be big flavour. So why would
of course, get
into that? And with the Isle of Skye, great story. But one of my, chats, if you've not been to the Isle of Skye, you should get yourself across. It's like House of Dragons meets Game of Thrones. It's round every corner. It's just a fabulous theatrical, magical island. So you get that to riff off as well. Harry Styles, Sign of the Times video, or get onto Prometheus, Ridley Scott's movie. Isle of Skye's been in Stardust, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert De Niro. It's been in many, many movies. One of your favourites, Maid of Honour with J-Lo. I know you've been watching it. It's one of the Dunvegan Castle.
It was Maid of Honour.
You know that, Gordon. You know that. You've got
I think Maid of Honour 2 I prefer.
Right.
Maid of Honour, Return of the Bouquet.
Is that a real? No, he's just. Anyway, so yes, it's a great place to talk about as well as to sample the whiskies.
Yeah.
But Gordon, we will have to head off now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
On the whiskey trail, most staying ahead on the whiskey trail.